It's 3 a.m. I'm in bed. My wife's bright pink truck is parked in our driveway, where it belongs. Then I hear banging, screaming, and suddenly, flashing lights. Yep, Karen called 911 because I wouldn't move my own vehicle to make room for her party guests. And when the cops show up, she pulls out her Oscar-worthy performance, claiming I attacked her. But what she didn't know was that my security camera caught everything. And spoiler alert, the only attack was her screaming like a banshee and kicking my garage door. Like if you've ever had to deal with a neighbor straight out of a horror movie. Comment where you're watching from, and if your HOA has gone rogue too. Stick around, because when the footage rolls, Karen's whole story crumbles in real time. Let me set the scene for you. I had just finished a grueling week of work, working late hours, juggling projects, and doing my best to keep the family afloat. My wife had ordered a new vehicle to accommodate our growing family. And hey, it was a bright pink truck. It brought a little flair to our lives and a grin to our faces every time we saw it. Friday night had rolled in, and after celebrating the weekend's arrival, I crashed early, ready for some much-needed sleep. The last thing on my mind was the neighbor drama that had unfolded over the past few weeks with the HOA. But as fate would have it, that peaceful slumber was about to be shattered. At first, the banging noise barely registered. I thought it was a dream. But when it turned into consistent, full-fledged pounding, I jolted awake and quickly swung my legs over the side of the bed. What on earth is that? I mumbled, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Then I heard her voice, the unmistakable screech of Karen. Get out here. Move your truck now. Fumbling for my phone, I checked the time. 3 a.m. This must be a nightmare, I muttered under my breath, still trying to wake up fully. Still half asleep, I looked out my bedroom window, and sure enough, there she was, fist pounding against my garage door, screaming bloody murder. And while she was at it, her party guests were noisily stumbling into her house. Just go park on the street. I shouted, hoping my voice would carry through the night air. It's not my fault you had a party. But Karen wasn't having any of it. Your damn truck is blocking my guests. Move it, she bellowed back, as if I were supposed to leap out of bed and cater to her whims at 3 a.m. I couldn't believe it. My wife's truck was parked legally in our driveway, yet here was Karen, acting as if she owned the entire block. I started to chuckle to myself. You've got to be kidding me, I said under my breath. Is this really happening? The full absurdity of it all hit me as I leaned against the window frame, with her hands on her hips and a look of extreme outrage on her face. She was practically frothing at the mouth. I stood by, still in my pajamas, bemused, knowing full well that the best part of this story was about to unfold. That's when I saw the flashing lights pull up. No way, I exclaimed, looking out further. She really called the cops? The police car rolled up, and 2 officers stepped out, looking as confused as I was. What's going on here? One asked, glancing between Karen and me as I exited the house, puzzled at what in the world was happening at such an ungodly hour. She won't move her truck. Karen cried out dramatically, flinging her arms around as if this were a scene right out of a movie. It's blocking my guests from parking. I raised an eyebrow and shot a knowing glance to the officers. It's our driveway, officer. My wife's truck is where it belongs, parked legally. She wants me to move it for her guests, but it's not my responsibility. Oh, you're just being difficult, Karen interjected, as if she was attempting to paint me as the villain, all while still somehow maintaining her physical stance as if she was about to attack. I have a right to ask. Ma'am, can you calm down and let us handle this? One of the officers interjected, his voice surprisingly measured. We were called here for a reason, but we need to hear both sides. I couldn't help but smirk slightly as I took the opportunity to spin my side, like a jester on a podium. Well, officers, all I know is our driveway is not her domain. Before I could continue, Karen exploded into another round of outrage. I swear to God, you've been such an inconsiderate neighbor for weeks. This is a fancy party, and it's ruining everything. At this point, the officers were clearly growing impatient. And did that need a police response? The second officer asked, trying to steer the conversation away from chaos. You should make a move. Karen shouted obnoxiously, her face flaring with desperation. He refuses to be a good neighbor. Good neighbors know when to respect each other's property, I said calmly, trying to maintain my cool amidst her incessant drama. As if realizing her argument was falling apart, Karen took another bold swing at dismantling my credibility. You attacked me earlier," she yelled suddenly, pointing an accusing finger in my direction. He grabbed my arm when I was trying to get him to see reason. "What?" I exclaimed incredulously, my mouth dropping open. "I haven't touched you. Your phone is literally recording this entire repayment of nonsense you've concocted." Unfazed by the facts, she pressed onward. "He's lying. I swear he grabbed me." The officers paused to look over the scene, while I glanced at the security camera mounted on my front porch, catching everything. I decided it was time to show them just how ridiculous this all was. "What you don't understand, Karen," I started, "is that I have evidence." "Oh, what? Your little phone recording?" she sneered, her faux confidence starting to crack as she could see that the officers weren't buying her theatrics. "Actually, it's a full security camera system," I explained. "Let me show you what really happened." As I walked toward my living room, I could hear murmurs from the officers, surprised by the comedic turn this ridiculous affair had taken. "You're kidding, right? She just called us to handle a driveway dispute at 3 a.m. Because apparently, I'm supposed to cater to her needs since her husband is some lawyer," I replied as I settled in front of my computer. After pulling up the video, I hit play, giving the officers and Karen a front-row experience to the circus she had created. "Watch closely," I said as I clicked play. The footage showcased Karen rolling up to my property, yelling threats about moving my truck before I even pulled into the driveway. I could hear her yelling about how my family needed to move for the greater good and to help the community flourish. The laughter from the officers started as they saw her dramatic antics unfold, but when it came time to highlight her claims of physical assault, it became painfully clear that it was nothing more than a fabrication. "Stop it! Get off my car!" Karen screeched as she kicked my garage door in another mock theatrical act. The screen showed her flailing about like a fish out of water, desperately trying to reclaim her stature, oblivious to the fact that she was now the punchline of an already absurd joke. The officers exchanged looks of disbelief as her wild behavior played out before them. "I didn't realize you could attack a door," one chuckled, trying to quell his laughter. Karen's face turned crimson with embarrassment, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she frantically tried to save face. "Address the real issue here," she shouted angrily. "You heard him threatening me. Actually, all we see is your hopeless attempt to frame a false narrative," the second officer said calmly. "That's not a good look." Karen finally realized the walls were closing in on her. She took a deep breath and huffed. "This isn't over. I'll be speaking to the HOA about your conduct." I looked at her incredulously. "Please do. I'd love to see how you attempt to spin this one. Spare me the theatrics in front of the law, because my community relies on everyone holding themselves accountable." Feeling satisfied at how the confrontation had taken shape, I turned back to the officers. "Thank you for your time, gentlemen. I can't thank you enough for helping clarify this blunder." "Just doing our job, Sheriff," one replied with a grin. "But I think we'll let the HOA know how this all unfolded, too. Might want to keep Karen in check." As the officers began to leave, I noticed Karen's fiery demeanor had diminished. "This isn't my last act of defiance, you bully," she called out towards me, her frustration as palpable as a storm cloud looming over the neighborhood. "Bring it on," I laughed, feeling emboldened by the confrontation. "But let's make one thing clear. I will always stand up for what's right, for my family and my community." Over the weeks following this petty debacle, Karen wound up becoming the talk of the neighborhood, not in the way she had intended. Her behavior served as a warning to anyone who might think they could push around others under the guise of entitlement. We banded together as a community to celebrate transparency and mutual respect. And as I embraced new friendships with neighbors who coordinated block parties and began fostering an atmosphere of understanding, I found that sometimes a seemingly small incident could ultimately pave the way to something far more significant. So here's to standing up against unreasonable demands and ridiculous claims from Karen and any other brawl-happy neighbors. In doing so, we can build a stronger community that embraces both accountability and the freedom to be ourselves, all without losing our sense of humor along the way.